Hey Downtimers, today we're going to look at how to make a miniature potion prop out of disposable shampoo, lotion, conditioner, and so forth bottles from hotels and motels. As far as I know, every motel, every hotel I've ever been to has these, and I recently got about 4 of these, and I thought it might be fun to see if I can make miniature potion props out of these. They work really well for small potion bottles. The only problem is you have to get small dice or miniature dice so that they can fit inside these tiny bottles. You can order small dice online on Amazon. I think it's like $10 or less for like 100, but I didn't need that many. So in true Downtime Dad form, instead of buying a bunch of stuff I didn't really need or buying things in excess of what I needed, I decided to utilize what I already had. I already had about 40 damage markers from Magic the Gathering Arena of the Planeswalker board games, and I decided these actually would work really well for 6-sided dice in these miniature potion bottles. And the Magic the Gathering board games are actually pretty cheap, about $10 or so for each one, which is a really good deal if you like board games and miniatures. So all I needed to do was find a drill bit that was a little bit larger to make the hole a little bit larger so that the dice could fit in. And once I secured that, I knew I was good to go. So now all I need to do is mark these up with a white paint, oil-based Sharpie, which works really well. I was a little bit surprised. The oil-based paint actually adheres very well. Once you put this paint on, you want to be very careful. That's why I'm using tweezers here. I recommend you use tweezers and do these in groups of 3 or maybe 4 or whatever, and do one side at a time. You want to make sure you have a die handy so that you'll know which pattern goes on which side. And you'll do one side on 3 or 4 of the dice, and then you simply will move to another group while those sides dry, and by the time you're done working on the other group, a previous group will be dry. It usually only takes about a minute or so for the paint to dry, so it really doesn't take very long at all. But I found using my fingers, I'm being kind of brave here using my fingers, but I found using my fingers a lot of times, if you're not real careful, you'll accidentally touch the paint before it's dry and it will smear, and it's very difficult, next to impossible, to clean that up without paint thinner or something harsh like that. So typically you want to use tweezers for this, but as you can see, I got a little bit brave here and started getting a real good rhythm and real good feel for these. And when there's nothing on them already, like some of these, you can use your fingers at first. But once you've marked these, you can just let them sit for a little while, and they dry pretty quickly, and they're good to go. You don't have to worry about anything else. And I really ended up liking this dark translucent red with the white markings on them. I think they look really nice. It looks like a really nice color combination. So now we simply need to take our drill with the drill bit we found earlier, that's a little bit wider, and make the opening a little bit larger so that the dice can fit in and out of the bottle very easily. Now I found some white cloth that I had from something we purchased before. I can't even remember what. I think it held some accessories, maybe for a game. And I really like the texture of this cloth, so I decided to use this, but you can use this or white paper. Also, I used ginger dressmaker shears. They cut through material, I mean literally, like it's easier than cutting through butter. It's crazy how good these shears are. I highly recommend these. You can get these on Amazon for about $25. And I'm just cutting a panel of the material out for the potion bottle labels. I like cutting a little bit more than what I think I'll need. It's always a good rule of thumb, I think. And obviously you can use paper for the potion bottle labels if you prefer. And I'm using raw sienna and raw umber here out of my super cheap acrylic paint set from Walmart. These are really cheap acrylic paints, and that's really all you need for something like this. You don't need any expensive paints to do something like this. And I'm just putting the raw sienna down first, and I'm just going to put a lot of water on this. It's a wash. So we want it to be kind of antiquated and, old and aged looking. So we don't want it to look new for sure. So we want to apply this with a lot of water and make it look kind of faded and a little bit aged and maybe a little dirty as well, and just to give it a little more character. Now I'm putting down the raw umber, and you can see I've just put just a little bit of the raw umber down and just kind of spaced it out, and I'm going back over the raw umber with a lot of water and kind of working in the umber into the sienna. Now I'm just going to hold the material up to the bottle to get a rough estimate of the length and width that I need to make the labels, front and back. And just a little note about the glue. It's pretty strong glue that they use on these to hold the plastic labels to the plastic bottles. And you can actually use this glue to hold your labels on along with a little extra glue. But it's pretty surprising. It would be pretty hard to get this off. So it's kind of like an added feature. You already have some glue on there for your labels. And now I'm going to use some acrylic crimson paint to paint a red cross on the front of this healing potion. Obviously you can use paint or Sharpies, anything like that, to color and write on the labels. Now since we already have glue on the plastic bottle for the front and the back labels, I like to go ahead and make a front and back label, and I just like to make kind of like a decoration for the front, and I like to put some writing on the back. As far as the back label goes, you can put, I like to put the name or the contents of the bottle on the back label, and you can also put the dice, whatever kind of dice you might need for the roll, for the potion or poison. We play a kind of homebrewed custom game, and sometimes the dice might change. So that's why I don't put dice information on mine. But the players will be made aware of what dice equals what potion, right? So if it's 2 6-sided dice in the potion bottle, then they would know that that would be a lesser healing potion. If there are 3 dice in the potion bottle, then they know that would be a heal, and 4, they know it's a greater heal, and so forth and so on. I use Elmer's Extreme Glue on this. I simply put it on the glue that's already on the plastic bottle. Between the 2 glues, you will not have any problems with slippage or the label peeling off or anything like that. I'm sure you could use just regular PVA glue on this as well. It just would take a little bit longer to dry. One thing I like to do with labels with this glue is I like to put some of the glue on the edge of the label, especially in the corners, because that's the first place where it's going to come up, if it's going to come up. So I'll take a little bit extra and on my finger, and I'll just put it all the way around the label, but especially concentrating on the corners. One thing I really like about this glue is it allows you to move the label around and get it situated exactly how you like it to be, without worrying about it adhering a little too fast. Like if you're using a hot glue gun on this, well, in the first place, you might melt the plastic, right? But even if you're using a hot glue gun on a low temperature setting, you could possibly do that and get away with this, but I wouldn't recommend that because it will set so quickly that you might set the label incorrectly. So the next thing we'll need for this is a lanyard or shoestring. Most of them seem to be about 2 feet long, so I usually cut that in half, and that ends up being about a foot in length for each potion. Also, the kids have a lot of these rubber armbands. They're all sorts of different colors, and I thought this would be pretty handy. A lot of them they just want to throw away. They're just sitting around the house. They're not using them anymore. I really like the dark red for the healing potion here, and I just put it around the potion bottle lengthwise, and I use the shoestring or lanyard as a tie to keep the rubber band in place firmly around the cap of the potion so as to make a seal for the cap. And since we're using strings to secure the patented potion protector bands around the bottles, we can use some beads to put on the strings, and that'll give us a little bit more character to the bottle and maybe give a little more information at a quick glance as to what the bottle contains. And a quick note here about the strings. You want to make sure you tie these off at the end so they don't fray. And it's always good to have fingernails so you can grab the very end of it. If you don't, you can always use tweezers to grab the very end of the string. It'll just help you get all the way to the very end of the string with the knot so that you still have plenty of length left to tie off the band around the neck of the bottle. I decided to use a green potion protector on this bottle, which will contain, as you can see on the back label there, serpent venom. I used a green Sharpie on the front to make a little S, and it looks a little bit like a snake. All those things along with the skull beads would tell someone that they certainly do not want to drink the contents of this potion, which is actually poison. So a rogue or assassin player would be really happy to have this, right? So they would use this, they take this out of their bag of holding or whatever, and they would put it maybe on their blade and add a little poison damage to their weapons. So after stumbling around with these for a little while, by the way, I was never a Boy Scout, so I know my knots leave a lot to be desired. But after messing around with these for a little while, I stumbled upon a knot that I prefer, and I think it kind of helps the rubber potion protector stay on the potion a little, or the bottle a little bit better. So it's just like you're tying your shoes, except you only use the first loop. You don't have 2 loops, you just have the first one, and you take that loop and you put it over the top of the bottle and you draw it down and make it tight, and it actually makes the potion protector a little more secure, I think, on the cap. It's a practical purpose there, and I think it looks a little bit better too than having 2 loops out front. And when it's time for the player to take off the string and take off the potion protector and roll the dice for his character to use whatever liquid might be in the bottle, you simply put the potion protector on the table and it makes a nice little dice tray for your miniature dice. Now keep in mind, these dice are small and they will scatter, and they're very light, so they will fly, and they're very easy to lose. So that's one reason why I like the rubber bands. You just, wherever you are, you don't even need a dice tray. You can just throw the rubber band on the table and throw the dice in the middle of the rubber band, and it keeps them all contained right there. And it works really well. It's a nice little touch, I think. I was pretty happy with that. So these are a lot of fun, and they're so small, even with space on the gaming table at a premium, each character can have 4 or 5 of these. So very practical, lots of fun, super easy to make, and a lot of fun to make too. So hope you guys really enjoy making these. If you do make some of these, please put a comment below so that you let me know how it went for you and how much your players like them. If you would, please give us a like if you got anything out of this. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.